Hello and welcome along to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ed McKnight.
And I'm Andrew Nicol.
And today on the show, we're talking about how to set a retirement goal that's specific to your situation. And the reason I want to talk about this today is in 2 episodes' time, it is our 2nd year anniversary of this podcast. You know, we will have been recording a new episode every single day for 2 years straight. And I want to come back for a moment just to where we started, which was talking about the long-term goals and having a long-term goal in that's kind of backing up your property investment strategy, the reason why you're into it. And I know that a lot of the feedback we've got from you guys has been around that, you know, we've helped you set some sort of goal, either for retirement, you want a future passive income, you want to build wealth, something along those lines. And we've been having some good conversations about this kind of long-term planning and how do you actually set a retirement goal for you specifically. Now, we've built a new calculator, which we're going to take you through today, but I just want to take it back to the 3 main reasons that people invest in property. For anybody who hasn't heard this before, because the last time we were in lockdown, we did a big survey of property investors and we were talking about why do people want to invest? And there were 3 main reasons that came through. And it's almost in this order of from people earlier in their property journey to people later in their property journey. So if you're early in journey, sometimes it's just that you want to grow wealth. So younger people they don't have a specific goal in mind, but they want to grow their wealth over time. That's probably you and I, Andrew, when we started.
Correct.
Because retirement and needing a passive income was so far off. Next, we've got what we call the retirement goal. So people want to live a comfortable retirement. That's where they build up a level of assets and then they live off them in retirement. So they gradually spend those assets in retirement so that on the day that you leave off or fly off to a better place, you've got no money left. Spent your last dollar. And actually, I know some people who listen to the show have said that that's actually their goal. That's what they want. Number 3, and this is kind of the last goal that people have, passive income. So this is where you want to build up a level of assets and then you want to not spend those assets in order to live. You want to live off the proceeds of those investments, from the investment income of those assets. So those are the 3 main goals. And the interesting thing about having a retirement or a passive income goal is you actually need to know how much do I want to live off once I hit retirement, or how much do I need once I get that passive income? And I know people have to choose this in a financial planning process or a goal setting process, but it's the how do you set that number that's really interesting that we want to dig into. And Andrew, how do people do this now?
So that's a really interesting question, and often it's something they haven't thought about, and that can be just because retirement's so far away, and so we don't really want to kind of think about the numbers, and so we just disregard it. But you've got to kind of think about your current lifestyle. That's probably the most important thing, because we use this word retirement, and it's really interesting dealing with younger people. Younger investors tend to want to retire earlier. Now, retirement doesn't mean pottering around the garden. It means having choices to go overseas and, you know, have holidays and all those kind of things, assuming we can in 20 years' time. And you need to be thinking about, okay, well, if I spend X amount on my current lifestyle, I need to have at least enough money to maintain that, because you don't want to run out of money in your later years, because that's often when your expenses might go up with healthcare and rest homes and all those kind of things. It's really interesting. Generally speaking, most people want 100K. It just seems to be that nice round number, $2,000 a week or thereabouts. That's typically what people say before they give much thought to it. It can be in different amounts than that. You know, some people just say 75, some people say 200K. I was working with some young investors recently. They wanted $500,000 every year. So it's relatively easy to calculate because it's tied to your current lifestyle. Now, generally speaking, this is kind of a good guide when you're thinking about it. So if you just want, you know, a basic lifestyle, 50K a year is probably your entry, probably not in Auckland. 75 will give you a comfortable lifestyle. 100 will give you a few more options. 150, you're going holidays a lot. And at 200, you're actually able to do things like give to other people and charities. And you really are living an affluent lifestyle there.
Yeah, I think you're living a very affluent lifestyle if you're on 200K. Even if you're spending 150K per year, you're having a roaring time in retirement. You'll be going on all the cruises. But I suppose when you choose these one of these kind of ballpark figures, there's a wee bit of an issue with it, right?
So the problem with this is it's not actually about your personal financial situation, because you could be on 300 grand a year at the moment, and it really is going to be hard for you to change those habits of buying the expensive wine, going out for dinner, going on holidays, or you might be on significantly less. You might live on less money, and so therefore you don't need to save as much leading up to retirement.
And so, as we like to do, we built a calculator. Well, we actually built a spreadsheet, but we've turned it into a calculator that you can use, and I'll put the link down into the show notes so you can get it. And it's not currently on our website, but by the time this podcast is released, I'll make sure that it's on there, because I think this is really cool. So I was having some great conversations with Deary Brown, who is a property partner here at Opus, and we were talking about that a lot of people want the same lifestyle that they've currently got, but they're not going to have the same level of expenses. So let's think about your mortgage. By the time you get to retirement, you're probably not going to be paying down a mortgage. Hopefully it's going to be freehold, so you won't need to spend that money. And hey, your kids hopefully won't be at daycare anymore, so you're not going to have to spend that. And well, if I'm saving $100 a week, then I'm not going to have to save in retirement anymore because I'm going to be living. So could we build a calculator that would give a specific number after that? The other thing that's really interesting, Andrew, and people don't really think about this, is tax. So if you're following that retirement strategy where you are saving a whole heap of money or building up a whole heap of wealth, and then you're living off that each year, well, you don't have to pay tax on that because you're not earning any additional income. So you're not going to be paying tax, you're not going to be paying your mortgage, you're not going to be paying childcare, you're not going to be paying savings. So once you take out all of those expenses, what's left over is what we call your after-tax cost of lifestyle. So what is the cost of your current lifestyle? And that is what this specific calculator figures out.
And actually, can I just jump in there? One of the big things that I've noticed, people that are in their later part of life, they might ramp up their KiwiSaver contributions. So if you're putting 8% into KiwiSaver, that's a big amount of money that's being put aside that you're not spending at the moment.
100%. And just to recover that tax thing before we walk through this and give you an example of it, so you can have a kind of walkthrough before you go through and put in your personal numbers. I just want to cover off that tax thing because it is interesting. So let's say that you earn 100k a year. If you earn 100k a year and you're paying your usual tax, that's about 24k a year. So you are living a 76k lifestyle once you get rid of that. Well, if you want to live off that in retirement, you just need to save up enough money. I mean, I say just, I mean, it is a big ask. I'm not pretending that's not, but you need to save enough so that you can have 76k a year in today's money in retirement, because you're not going to have to earn income and then pay tax. That's a really important thing to just, fully kind of pull your head around. But of course, if you were to take that other strategy, the passive income strategy, where you're living off the income of your assets, so you've got a whole heap of assets, they're paying you out dividends or they're paying you out interest, then you would still have to earn 100k because then you still have to pay tax because you're earning an income. Does that make sense, Andrew?
Yeah, actually, but just one thing there. Can you just talk about inflation there? Because I think that's a really important thing when you're thinking about future income.
Okay, so this is something we've had so many discussions about just internally, because it is it is really confusing for people. So 100k today is not going to buy what 100k will buy in 20 years' time, because things get more expensive. Not just houses, but everything gets more expensive. And my good example is the 50-cent lolly mixtures that I used to buy at the dairy. God, you could buy a whole heap of lollies. 50 cents worth of a lolly mixture today at the dairy. God, you probably ought to get 2 in there or whatever it happens to be. So
surely they don't still sell 50 cent.
Text to 5522 if you can still buy a 50 cent lolly mixture at your local dairy. I need to know this. But that's really important when you're factoring this in. So we usually say that things get more expensive by about 2% per year. That's what the Reserve Bank is targeting. If you want to live a 100k lifestyle in 10 years' time, you don't need 100k, you need about 122k in order to live the same lifestyle, because you've got that 2% increase year on year, and that compounds. It eventually, it is in essence exponential. So you just need to think about that. Now, I believe that thinking about inflation, if I'm really honest, Andrew, is very, very complicated because I don't think that people are conscious of it because it happens slowly. So the calculator we're going through is about today's money. How much would you need of today's money in order to build that up? And then, you want to be able to just keep inflation in mind as you're calculating it, because it's quite hard to think about, well, what's a 100K lifestyle in 10 years' time, that kind of thing. So important to know about. And in this case, we've taken all of that out.
I think the big thing, though, for people, when you think inflation is 2%, and so, it's hardly anything, it does have a huge difference over a longer period of time. So 20 years worth of inflation on $1 million, you actually need $1.5 million if you're applying roughly a 2% inflation rate. So that's just something for future proofing. So you can't think about your property and think, okay, well, this property is going to be worth X amount at retirement. That's going to be enough to live on $100,000 a year. So, but yeah, you're right. This calculator is about today's money.
I'm going to share my screen with you now, and we're just going to go through an example so you can get your head around the numbers. So, Andrew, what's your current annual income? Just make this up, because I wouldn't really ask you in front of a couple of thousand people.
Can you just make that bigger? I can't read that.
So, Andrew, what's your current annual income?
So let's work on $100,000 a year.
And are you contributing to KiwiSaver at all?
Yeah, let's put 3% for that.
And what's your partner's annual income if you are planning with a partner?
Okay, let's say $50,000 a year.
And is she contributing to KiwiSaver too?
Yes, so 3% as well.
Okay, and let's talk about your mortgage now, because are you thinking in this example you would have paid that off?
Yeah. So say $200,000 mortgage at the moment, and say 17 years, and I got 20 years to retirement, so it'll be paid off.
Yeah, okay. And we need a current interest rate. What's your current interest rate?
Just say 3%.
Yeah, sweet. Now, just for everybody at home, the reason we're asking that is we're trying to understand, well, what is your current mortgage payment that you're actually making? Now, if in your mind you're thinking, oh, but I want to take the money I'm currently putting towards my mortgage and I want to use that to go on holiday each year, that's cool. Just don't put your mortgage in now, because then we'll assume that you're not making any payments. So you want those payments to be part of your future lifestyle. Now, I've just got a couple more questions for you, Andrew. Are you saving any money per week that you won't need to kind of save in retirement? So you don't need to factor that in.
Yeah, let's say $100 a week savings.
And any childcare?
Let's say $1,000 a month.
Sweet. And one last question. Any other costs that you're spending on now that you wouldn't need to in retirement?
No, nothing else.
Okay, so we said that your household is 150K pre-tax. That's what you currently earn. And what we've calculated now is what is the cost of that lifestyle after tax. So how much money are you actually spending per year to fund your lifestyle? Not including savings, not including childcare. And it's about $81K, $81,327 after tax. So that's what you would need to put into a retirement calculator when you go and Google retirement calculator and figure out, well, how much do I actually need to fund my current lifestyle? And I've also put pre-tax there. Pre-tax, it's about $107,000. But I think this is really cool, Andrew, because a lot of people, if you don't just pick a number, like at 100K or something, a lot of people want to replace their current salary. And I think it is important to note that you may not need, and you probably don't need, your exact current salary in order to fund your retirement, per year. You don't need to earn, if you're currently on 150K per year, you don't need to earn 150K per year in your bank account each year in order to be able to fund your lifestyle, because your lifestyle will be different. And so hopefully this will give some amount of comfort to people who can go through and run their own numbers here.
Correct, but just one thing, and the reason why you've got a number there for a pre-tax, if you're going to build up assets that are going to generate an income, you're still going to have to pay tax. So you need to account for that. You don't want to be working on the amount you want to spend because you're going to lose the tax off that. So something like a portfolio that was high yielding or a share portfolio.
And just lastly, before we wrap up, Andrew, I know you saw some quite cool figures on sorted.org.nz on their retirement calculator. Just remind me what those figures were, because I thought that was pretty cool too, if people just wanted to steal a figure that somebody else has come up with.
So again, just as a general guide, if you live in the main centres, if you want a no-frills lifestyle, if you're single, they say about 31k. If you're with a partner, about 47. If you want a few more options, so travelling a bit more often, then if you're single, then it's about 62. If it's with a partner, 75. If you're living in one of the smaller regions, the assumption is that your costs are going to be lower. I don't know if that's correct or not, but no frills lifestyle for a single person, 30k, and with a partner, 33k. And if you want, again, that more affluent lifestyle, according to them, 43k and 59k with a partner.
Now, one thing that I'll just say as well, the scariest thing on this is that even if you live in the regions and you're single and you're doing the no-frills lifestyle, the amount of money that they've put down there is still more per week than what you would get in superannuation. So, and this is based on what retirees are actually paying. So people who are actually living a no-frills lifestyle in the regions. So I think it's almost quite scary, Andrew. Everybody, if you want to live kind of the minimum lifestyle, needs to in part self-fund some of their retirement. Very, very, very few people are going to be just living on superannuation. We're going to have to fund some of it. Now, property might not be the way for everybody to get there. It's probably the way most people listening to this podcast want to get there. But, there are other ways to do it. But whatever you do, you've got to do something. Because even the cheapest lifestyle of what people are paying is still not being fully covered by superannuation. And I just think it's really important to kind of bring this back to the top of our minds, because we probably haven't talked about it in a while. And certainly was one of the things we really kicked off this podcast with. Now, just before we wrap up, I want to read you a review. This comes from M. Willis. What you talking about, Willis? And this was it says, still 5-star podcast. It's quite a long review. I won't read it all out and subject you to that. But they did a really good point. I quite liked this. They said, lastly, guys, and this is absolutely true, the AFA RFA designation is gone now. Happened in March. I'm sure you understand the changes, but we're all called financial advisors now. That's actually true, M. Willis. So I appreciate you for just reminding us that of it, because otherwise us old guys just kind of fall into our ways. But thank you so much for reviewing that, and we really appreciate you listening to the podcast. Hey, look, let's wrap it up there, but please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It really helps us get the message out to more people. Thanks for listening to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ed McKnight.
I'm Andrew Nicol.
And we're going to be back again tomorrow with even more daily strategies, tactics, and insights to help you get the most out of the New Zealand property market. Until next time.